So, welcome, folks, to another podcast on building high performance teams. I'm delighted today to have Eamonn Hughes, who is the VP and GM for Digital Solutions EMEALA for Johnson Controls. And Eamonn also is the GM for Johnson Controls in Ireland. Eamonn, welcome to the podcast. Delighted to have you here.
Hi, Darragh. Great to be here. Really looking forward to our session.
Excellent, excellent. Do you know, Eamon, the first question I usually ask people is to give me a bit of background on their professional side and maybe a little bit about them personally. But I have to ask you first because I love your background there on OpenBlue. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So we launched OpenBlue as a company about 2 months ago. It was actually launched by our CEO and CFO on our Q3 earnings announcement. And essentially, it's the rebranding or brand launch of digital for JCI, for Johnson Controls, into the market. And what it is it's a statement to the market about our capability from a connected point of view, from an IoT, big data, cloud, and application point of view, bringing all of that technology together under our solutions, under OpenBlue, into the market, into the smart buildings market. Yeah. Johnson Controls is now positioned as the world's largest smart building technology company, and OpenBlue is a key element behind that. So the beauty about it is that we can go into verticals. So for example, we can go with OpenBlue hospitals or OpenBlue campuses into education, or we can go into a solutions space. For example, we have something called OpenBlue Enterprise Manager, which meets the sustainability carbon needs of organizations, and it's a really exciting time for us, and very, very significant. So and it's great to be a part of it.
Excellent, excellent. And I love the tagline. It's dead simple. It's just got a bit of a flow to it. OpenBlue, the blueprint for the future. I really like it. Amy, can you tell us a bit about yourself professionally, and maybe a little bit about yourself personally as well, the man Eamonn Hughes?
Yeah, sure. So professionally, I suppose I wasn't born with the grey hair.
Yeah, I feel your pain.
So I've been around a little while, I suppose, but actually 30 years. So I've been in the technology business space for over 30 years. Very fortunate to have been so, and wasn't necessarily planned. So I did a degree in UCC in English and Maths, a BA degree, which was great. And the reason I chose those two subjects is because I liked them. And I was good at Maths, and I loved English. Very, very strange combination, but I think it's kind of stood me well, and it probably tells a bit about me, So, part analytical and so on and so forth. But then the other part with the English stuff was kind of on the creative side, and I think that's a great mix to have in a business sense. But I also did a HDip in teaching, in education, and trained to be a teacher. And I picked up some great skills there, but decided I wasn't going to go into that profession for various reasons. I think actually those reasons were probably linked to where I ended up with myself, because I was kind of looking for an environment where you could excel and be rewarded for that.
Right.
And I'm not convinced that that's the case if you're a teacher, because it's very vocational, and I think it relies on that ethos. And the best teachers, it's like, we know them, we know who they are from our own experiences, are vocational. And I suppose I wasn't inclined to that, to be very honest. So I decided to not be a teacher, but then I didn't know what I was going to do, and I ended up actually in technology and IT, perhaps by chance. But I ended up doing I ended up doing a course with a company called Nixdorf that were ultimately bought by Siemens. They were one of the largest PC manufacturers in Europe at the time. They had a place in Bray. It was called a Centre of Advanced Technology. And I actually got into that centre, and I spent 7 months there learning a lot about technology and IT. And I just, I wasn't a coder, I wasn't a developer, because I didn't have what I would call the intense attention span that you need for that type of profession. You really need to hone in on the code.
Right.
But I did have a technical element to me, and I found myself understanding and liking messing around with operating systems and networks and things like that. But I also was fascinated by technology companies, even at that time, by IBM and Microsoft, and by their strategy. And these were early days for Microsoft, you know. So anyway, I went in then, and I one of the first companies I worked for was Boeing, the aerospace company, and I spent over 5 years with Boeing. I didn't know it at the time, but they were the largest IBM mainframe site in the world. They were a huge Cisco customer. So I was getting into the best of technology and experience, and I was flying around Europe at a young age, installing network systems and doing all sorts of very interesting stuff, and spending time in the US. And then I went into consultancy. So I worked for companies like Capgemini and Computer Sciences Corporation. By that time, I'd moved to the UK, so I was living in London, and started my own business. Had a consultancy company for 4 or 5 years, and then I did a startup in London for a Dutch organization. I started the UK office for a company called Tridion. They were a content management software company. They got bought over by a company called SDL, floated on the stock exchange, and then I joined a company called Teradata, which is a US data warehousing business intelligence company who had amazing technology. And I spent 14 years there, and had a great time. Tremendous organization, great experience. They were an S&P 500 company, and I ended up being the managing director for UK and Ireland. Had about 450 people, office in London and Manchester and Dublin. And then I left that company to do a startup in California, a company called Enlighted, and I was the VP for international for that company, which was where I ended up in the buildings space. That was about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And that company was acquired in 2018 by Siemens, and then I joined Johnson Controls on the 1st of October 2019, which is just over a year ago, to build our business for digital in the EMEALA region. And it's been a tremendous time with JCI, I have to say. So look, Darragh, that's a bit of a long-winded answer, but it gives you a good flavor, you know, of kind of the progression, I suppose, really, in relation to me and my career. And then on a personal basis, I'm married to Olive, and have been for quite a while. It's we had our 25th anniversary a couple of years ago. I've got two daughters, 22 and 20, both in third level, both great girls. Always talk about them as teaching me more than I've taught them, for which I'm very grateful. And you know, live in the beautiful south coast of Cork, as you know, which has everything you know you could look for. And of course, we have a great, vibrant business community in Cork. We've got the airport, which sadly is not being utilised now too much because of COVID. And so on. So yeah, it's a good one. And I've got a dog as well. Where would you be without the dog? You know, you need to get out for a few walks. That's one thing I've learned over the years, and a few swims, as you know. So being very close to the sea is a great passion of mine. Has been for a few years now, and I also like to play golf. You know, we call these places the third place. You know, and it's very important for a person. I learned to have a third place. So you've got your work, you've got your family, and you're expected to play a role in those places. But
Yeah.
when you go to your third place, you can
Yeah.
just stop playing that role, and you can just be, what you want to be. And I think it's very important to have that kind of balance in your life.
Absolutely. I've never heard someone describe it as the third place, but it makes absolute sense to me, and I totally get it. And that was a fantastic description and detail around your career, where you started to where you come from. I love the way that from the very beginning you did maths and English because you liked it. It was that's what I like, and kind of following your heart. As well as anything else, that's what it sounds like. It's and like some incredible experience in there, working with leading edge IT companies, leading global IT companies, but also that entrepreneurial spirit coming out there with a couple of startups and your own business. It's really fantastic. Eamon, I can tell even in the first few minutes that you've had so much experience in leadership and leading teams. Can you tell me a little bit about what it means to you to be a leader?
Yeah, so I can do my best, Darragh, to do that. Like I suppose what it means to me being a leader is I think the first and foremost thing is that you're helping somebody else, right? So you're creating something. You can call it a vision, for others that are going to follow it. I think people need to be inspired, and I certainly do. And I've fortunately worked with some great people, some great leaders. I've also worked with some that I wouldn't call great, and so you have the opposite impact, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
But the great ones that I have worked, they set out a vision, and they create what you might call buy-in, and they do that in different ways. You talk about style, and you talk about leadership capabilities, and so on. Um, but for me, fundamentally, it is about people, and it is about doing something worthwhile, doing something exciting that you can grow and build. So I kind of figured out, that I like to build things and I like to grow things, and I don't mind doing it from scratch.
Yeah.
And that kind of motivates me quite a lot. So in essence, what we're doing in JCI right now is effectively a startup within a huge corporation.
Yeah.
And the huge corporation is a bit like the battleship moving along,
Yeah.
and we're the little guns on the turrets at the top. We're fast and we can turn quickly. There's an agility there, but
Yeah.
you're still on the battleship, which is great because it gives you a sense of you got investment and so on. But it also, you also got to take that with you. So you got to take that with you. You got to build a team. You got to sell new stuff into the market. It's a very exciting thing, and I like to create that vision, create the strategy, and
Yeah.
then build a team around that so
Yeah.
that we can go and do it, because you
Yeah.
can't do it on your own. There's no chance you can do it on your own.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that kind of inspiration, that trust, that kind of collaboration, um, the coaching element. I like to work with talented people, so I like to try and seek out talented people and then to help them to achieve their potential. So
Yeah.
they're the types of things that motivate me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really insightful stuff there. A lot about getting people to be bought in to follow you to do what's necessary to achieve that vision that you've spoken about. Do you think that when you're building, when you're in that leadership role, is it is it more where's the balance in terms of kind of planning versus intuition?
So, there's a combination. It's a good question. So you're not going to get away with intuition only, really. You know, so if you take, like, for example, say if you were doing a startup and so on and so forth, your intuition is going to give you an idea to get you going, okay? And then you formulate that idea, and then but you have to sell others on the idea, right? And if you're going to sell investors, you need to have a plan.
Yeah.
And effectively, the executive committee and the board of JCI they invest in digital solutions as the business in JCI, and they're not going to do that as senior business people and leaders themselves, in a way that isn't considering deeply, a good plan, a good business plan.
Yeah.
So you have to have a certain level of business acumen, of planning, of strategy, and define your strategy, work out your strategy, be able to communicate your strategy, get people on board with your strategy, get the stakeholders bought in, and then once you do that, you've effectively got the permission to execute on it. You've got the permission, but also the backing, the support, the investment, and the belief.
Yeah.
People need to have belief in you from up there, as well as people that are in your team.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very important for me to have my boss believe in me and back me, because I need his support. It's as simple as that. Like, people in my team need my support if I'm going to believe in them. So but the intuition at the same time is also a powerful thing. So I have called on intuition many times. Many times. That gut feeling, you can't necessarily ignore it. At times it's telling you something, and you need to act on it, and I have done many times in my career.
Yeah. So that kind of planning gives you the foundation on which to execute, and the intuition then is to kind of help you with tactics and that strategy, if you like, to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's to help you with tactics, and those tactics might involve, a pivot. So you might be going down the wrong road, and the plan is to go down that road.
Yeah.
Because that's the plan that you've set. So you're going down that road.
Yeah.
But you mightn't be getting the feedback you expect from the customer, or there could be something wrong with the solution or the product that you've got that doesn't quite meet it. So your intuition is going to tell you certain things at certain points in time, that do you keep going, or do you make another move? And I suppose, really, the beauty about experience, and again, coming back to the gray hair, is that you learn from your past as well. And there have been times where I've made decisions, they wouldn't have been the best. It mightn't have worked out, but I would have learned a lot from it, and that would feed into my intuition then, and experience, and then you kind of come to rely on certain things. But it does make sense as well, to check things on your intuition. It's particularly from people in your sphere, that you can respect an opinion, and you can sound them out, and then that's not a bad thing to do either, to get validation for your intuition, rather than kind of acting straight off, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
But usually it's right. And then the other thing that comes into the equation, Darragh, is self-awareness.
Yeah.
So you can have a new intuition thing, and your intuition can tell you you're right, but you may not be. You could have done something different. and you have to admit that maybe you could have done something different. And, because the question you can ask yourself is, I'm in this situation now, is there anything I could have done different?
Yeah.
And if you're not that self-aware, your answer is no, there's nothing I could have done different.
Right.
But maybe if you are a bit self-aware, you could admit yourself, yeah, you know what, there is something I could have done different. If I'd have done X, Y, Z instead of A, B, C, maybe that would have been a better route to take,
Yeah. And that's self-awareness. I've heard a couple of people talk about that self-awareness. It sounds like it's quite a challenge to be able to kind of to even to have that skill. It's almost a skill to be self-aware, it seems.
It's completely a skill, I
Yeah.
believe,
Yeah.
because I learned it myself.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily intuitive, so to speak, So,
Yeah.
and actually, I so I definitely learned it, and then kind of once I understood it, like any skill that you can learn, if you understand something, you can take it on board,
Yeah.
and you can say, you know what, I understand what that is, and that can actually help me
Yeah.
to perform better. It's and it's very good, and I see that actually a lot with senior leaders, that
Yeah.
they have a high level of, they have the best, the ones that I admire anyway, have a level of that,
Yeah.
and it kind of gives a bit of humility as well, I think, so
Yeah. Which,
you know
it's another question I was going to ask you on the leadership piece, and I think we're kind of talking about it already to a certain extent, is the balance between nature versus nurture. I'm just listening to you, and it's been about learning and developing and growing. Where would you see the balance for that those leadership qualities in terms of nature versus nurture?
so that's a very interesting one, and I would have said to you, some time back, that it was nature, right?
Mm,
That this guy was a great guy because of his personality,
yeah.
or he could have been funny, or he could have been, just, you might have, people talk about an aura or something,
Yeah.
and some people, do have that kind of quality,
Yeah.
but what I learned is that from a leadership point of view, nurture is extremely important.
Yeah.
And for me, I started to kind of nurture that whole subject quite a while ago, in my career. And what happened was I just kind of decided. I actually admitted to myself that I didn't really understand what it was,
Yeah.
and therefore I thought, you know what, I want to try and understand this a bit more. And as I started to do that, by reading books, but one of the things that I did, was I actually had a coach, like a personal business coach,
Right.
and she helped me hugely, to understand, because I was in leadership position, and I was getting bigger leadership positions, but I wouldn't have had what you would have called formal training, so to speak, because
Right.
people are put into positions based on their performance, and they said, oh, this guy's done really well, he's been a fantastic sales guy, he's made his numbers, he's done X, Y, Z. Let's put him in charge of a team of salespeople.
Yeah.
So the first thing you're going to do on that level, is you're going to go in there, and you're not going to stop being the salesperson that you want and become the leader that you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a very difficult transition, right?
Yeah.
And I found myself kind of struggling in some of those kind of situations, and I ended up, kind of saying, oh, I need something to help me to do this better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I started, the coaching was really good, because because it was a leadership element. So I learned how to coach myself.
Yeah.
You know, I learned how to mentor people, and there's a difference between mentoring and coaching, and I learned you know, things like collaboration,
Yeah.
you know, kind of inspiring trust, and
Yeah.
you know, just the power of being able to ask questions, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and also to consider different perspectives,
Yeah.
and how you could get a team performing to a high level,
Yeah.
and you know, so that set me off on a journey, and usually I'm reading something
Yeah.
at any particular point in time. So I'm reading a great book at the moment called The Startup Way by Eric Ries. You may have heard of it. He
I
wrote
know it.
the Lean Startup, which I read some years ago, and
Yeah.
but now the Startup Way is so relevant to me in relation to what I'm doing within JCI and the entrepreneurial management that's needed within the context of a huge corporation, you know. So there's always something that you can learn. That's what I feel, and I like to think that, and it's important for me to work on myself,
Yeah.
because it just it kind of keeps me in tune, and I think it keeps you, you know, you're developing then all the time, so you can
Yeah.
kind of rise to the challenges and so on. So, but look, you know, nature and charisma and things like that are certainly bonus points, I would have thought, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's no denying that certain people have it. I mean, I don't know if you ever remember Eric Cantona when he came into Manchester United.
Yeah.
He was certainly one that had it, and people
Yeah.
people followed him. I mean, the
Yeah.
whole team followed him, the whole city followed him, and
Yeah.
you know, he had it in spades. But,
Yeah, yeah, incredible charisma, and no doubt some people just, as you say, that they do have an aura. Like it's wonderful to hear, Eamon, you talking about, I guess, a self-awareness about a need to develop further to enhance your own skill set, to be better at the job you're now in. You're not kind of relying on you're not resting on your laurels for work well done in the past. You've identified a new skill set to help you move forward. Very much in the nurture side of it, which is really really interesting. You know, you mentioned there, Eamon, about kind of building high performance teams, which kind of brings me on to my next question. What do you see? What do you think are the key characteristics of a high performance team?
I'll answer that in a second. There's just one thing actually I should have mentioned in the last session. One of the best places to develop your leadership skills is from other people. And right now I'm in a very good position on that basis, because there's some people that I'm working with who I can learn a lot from, you know, and if you can find yourself into that situation, I would say always be looking out for that. Always be looking out for that, because that's a massive opportunity that you can take advantage of, I suppose. But the
Yeah,
characteristics of a high performing team. So really, I suppose. So clarity is very important, right? That kind of people know where they stand.
mm,
Um, and you know, you hear about the word trust. I think that that's very important,
yeah,
because look, you spend most of your working hours or your living hours in work, right? You know, you spend more time in work than you do with your family.
yeah,
You know, and if you're going to dedicate that, well, then, you know, surely you should be in an environment where you're trusted
yeah,
to do the best job that you can do. And as an individual, if you get that, I know from my own experience that your performance is going to lift, right?
yeah,
Particularly if you're working for a good boss, a good leader.
yeah,
And like I say, I've had the privilege of of doing that, because because if he has that respect and trust in you, you're going to have that reciprocal, and you're going to go the extra mile, you're going to do the extra bit. So I think that that's very, very important, right? And you treat people in a certain way, with a lot of respect. You're supportive of them. You're there for them on a consistent basis. To help them to achieve. And I work in a fairly, it can be a cut and dry kind of, when it's sales and you got your targets, and you got to go out there and you got to get the business, and you got to build the support teams and so on and so forth, and so you can get a lot of egos, you can get a lot of things like that, but the thing about having a high performance team is that clarity and trust are really important. The other thing that I find that's really important is the diversity from a team point of view. And diversity can come in the form of the sexes, right? So in my team right now, I have some really fantastic female leaders, and they do bring something else to the party. There's no question about it, and I have different races. I have a diverse team, geographically spread, so different cultures. And that combination can bring a lot to the performance of a team. In the teams that I build, typically they're competitive, so there's an inbuilt competitive element, which is fine, but it's not the be all and the end all, because that can be quite destructive actually in helping you to achieve what you want to achieve overall, particularly when you have a business at a particular point in time. From say a startup point of view, you want to have a lot of collaboration in your team. So you have to encourage that. And in JCI, we have one of our values is one team. And people understand that value, and that value is referred to quite a bit, one of the other values is purpose-led, so having these kind of values helps a lot. And then I would say, look, one of the things that comes with clarity, Darragh, is accountability. So if you give people clear objectives and they understand where they stand and what their job is in relation to achievement, it gives them something to aim for, and that shouldn't be too complicated. It should be pretty straightforward. It should play into the overall strategy of the company, and everybody should be conscientious of what they're doing to contribute toward the overall goals of the company and the strategy of the company, that if they execute on their bit, there's a massive contribution.
That's they're superb insights, and it kind of it flows from what you're talking about earlier as well, about getting the team behind you, and that engagement and communication piece, that trust element, where that two-way trust between you and your team. They know that you've got their back, and that then they'll give it their all. And I've heard it from so many people I've spoken to as well, that sense of purpose seems to be massive. And I really like that idea around the diversity, cultural diversity, gender diversity, all those different backgrounds, which must be a melting pot for ideas, and then being able to drive and nurture that to great effect. There, Eamonn, it's like even when you consider everything that you've been speaking about there, there's so much planning that must go into it, and such a huge amount of work to get it right. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that you've come across, or some of the biggest challenges you see today when developing that high performance team?
So the biggest one we have today is COVID-19 and the pandemic, which is a massive challenge. I mean, huge challenge globally. Also for us as a company. You know, one of the things that we have, and my role as GM for Ireland, is we have a fantastic office in the centre of the city in Cork, One Albert Quay.
Yeah.
And, you know, I miss it, and I'm sure that a lot of people in our company miss it, miss that buzz, miss that human interaction, that vibrancy that you get in the office space. And you know, the facility, because it's also the headquarters, the global headquarters of Johnson Controls. You know, was just a great place to go into work. You know, it was a great building. It had a lot of technology in it. We had it as the smartest building in Ireland, and I've just done a project actually in there to upgrade the whole building with all our latest digital technology, you know, including a contact tracing, full-blown COVID system, which you know, monitors and measures social distancing and all sorts of things. But
wow.
So that's definitely a big challenge, you know. And I've been building a team, and you know, like I'll give you an example of the challenge there. So one of the people that joined my team actually moved to Cork from Spain.
Right.
And he joined in January, and the plan was for his wife and 3 kids to follow in May when the school was over in Madrid, and then they were going to get their house in Cork and all that. You know, he spent 21 years in Spain. He was actually from Cork, so very happy to kind of be moving back and having that next phase of his life with his wife and his family. His wife is Spanish and so on. So come the week before St. Patrick's weekend, and COVID was kicking off, and he came to me and said, "Eamonn, I have to go to Madrid." You might remember Madrid was crazy at the time, you know, and he said, "My kids are getting very scared," and I said, "Go, just go. And we worry about it, you know, and you know, it won't be too long before you be back."
Yeah.
You know, this thing, we all thought that this thing we'd get over it and all that, and of course we haven't.
Yeah.
And you know, he's still working out of there, but it's fine, it's not a problem. So you know, we were hiring guys in Dubai, and you know, he couldn't start in Dubai. He had to start in Bangalore because he can't get into Dubai because they can't issue visas. Oh. So one of the things that I did very recently was I organized onboarding summits, virtual onboarding summits for new people in the company, to give them a few hours of leaders' time to get to understand the company, what's happening, and to help them to build their internal network to make them more effective. And that worked very well. That worked very well. I mean, you know, I had a workshop today, one of my meetings, with our partner, Microsoft in the Middle East, and there was, you know, 30 of us on the call. I was on a leadership call today. There was 100 of us on the call. You know, so it's like, look how we have adapted to this virtual world, right? Which is amazing, the resilience of human beings. But you know, I'm very conscious that we're entering into this phase now where things like mental health, fatigue, you know, it is a bit tougher, you know, particularly in a European context where we have the winter months and so on and so forth, and you know, we got the flu and the pressure in the healthcare system and all that. so there's lots of factors, lots of challenges on that basis. But this is an unprecedented challenge, this particular one for everyone. And I'm really proud of people in my team. We were doing things like virtual coffee shops and or coffee get-togethers and things like that, and just to kind of say, right, let's all get on a Zoom, get your coffee. We're not talking about work.
Yeah.
And we're talking about other things. And we were doing that for quite a while. And, I had people on that call from places like Brazil, from the US, and everybody was in the same boat.
Yeah.
It's just amazing, but, the reality is that we found we are busier than ever.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, there are days where you have back-to-back meetings, you're going from one to another, and it's like, and, that's the new normal now.
Yeah.
But, obviously, hopefully we'll come out of all of that. And that is a huge challenge, a huge challenge.
Yeah.
So that's the one that comes to mind because it's most recent and a big one to do. I mean, the other ones, you have things like Darragh, one of the biggest challenges when you're building teams is to try and get the right people, the best people, talent into positions, yeah. And so that's always a challenge. You got to compete for talent out there in the market. You got to have a good talent acquisition partner to help you to find the resource that you need to get. You need to be able to set up. I always look at it as a two-way street. And I always want somebody. If I'm interested in somebody coming into a team, I want them to be very sure as well, and I want to be quite transparent during that process.
Yeah.
So I will never paint a bed of roses.
Yeah.
For anybody coming into a team that I'm building, because it's not like that.
Yeah.
Because there's always challenges, and we're always trying to do something, that's involving growth.
Yeah.
And growth is pushing the boat out, because you have to push the boat out, and so there's a certain environment involved in that. So
yeah.
I'm
conscious that I'm after going way over the time. I promised that I'd keep this to Eamonn, but there's some fascinating insights here. Do you mind if I ask you just, I guess, two more very quick questions?
No problem.
I guess, like, I think it's really interesting to hear about how you're running those kind of workshops and just getting people, to come online and not talk about work. Let's just get together and kind of have like a water cooler conversation, if you like, just something just to make it a bit more normal. Do you think the kind of fundamentals of building high performance teams has changed in this kind of remote work era? We're probably never going to go back all the way back to where we were before. And like, I'm presuming from here on in, it's always going to be an element. Even when COVID is gone, there'll always be a strong element of remote work. Do you think we need to start rethinking how we lead and how we build those high performance teams, or is it just about reapplying the same fundamentals in a different way?
Darragh, one of the things I would say is it's harder, right? But it's still possible, very possible in my experience, right? And the reason why it's still possible is because of the technology. Right? The technology has enabled us to connect. Like you and I are doing tonight. We're not in the same room, but we're still connecting, right? We can see each other, we can talk to each other. I can understand what you're saying. There's still some element of body language.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not the same as meeting face to face, right?
Yeah.
It just isn't. But it does enable us to do a huge amount. And we can still the technology is fantastic. So I use chat all the time on Teams to just ping somebody a message.
Yeah.
And there's communication, and it's back and forth, right? And if we need to get on a call, we can do it quickly, and and then we got the visual element associated with it as well,
Yeah.
And we're all in the same boat. So the technology, Zoom and Teams, in particular, have been a massive enabler because the world keeps ticking around. The sun keeps coming up, it keeps going down, right? And that means that in between that time, there's stuff to be done. And basically we can do it. So and now you're having customer meetings. Virtual customer meetings are becoming normal.
Yeah.
Because you can't have them face to face, and customers expect that, and partners expect it, and so we've adapted hugely because of the technology. So it is still possible, but we have to be a little bit more conscientious. One of the things about high performing teams is that people in the team, they want to find a way themselves. So if you give them the support that they need, and look, the support can be easy, right? So you've probably experienced this recently. I've had calls with people, and there's been young kids running around in the background.
Yeah.
I said, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a problem, right? There was a call I was on, and there was kids running around, and they were like dressed in like Disney little suits and things like that, and your dresses. And my daughters used to be like that, you know what I mean? It's like, so I know what it's like. It's been very difficult for people, so you need to give a little bit of leeway.
Yeah.
You need to have that kind of respect, right? Because people will pay it back.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to go to the doctor and all that kind of stuff, and go to the dentist, not a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
People will put in the graft, put in the hours. If you want to start a little bit late and finish a bit late, if you want to start early, and you should have this leeway. And the remote working and mobile working, people are getting used to it. We did a survey in our company, and a lot of people want to have this as part of the future, but they want to have a mix, and they want to have the option.
Yeah.
And I think companies will probably be a lot more flexible once we get back to, you come out of COVID, a bit more flexible in relation to, your office space. I think the mix will be a lot more flexible, because it's what people are looking for and what they need. So
yeah, that's gas. That's gas. And I've had my own kids joining me on calls, and glad they haven't come in yet this evening. I've got away with it, but I found it's actually almost brought more of a human element into the work environment. People's guards are maybe a little bit down, which is great, because like you say, it seems to help that connection piece. The very last thing I'll ask you, Eamonn, then I promise I'll let you go, is, and we've been talking about it around kind of the technology that's there today. Are there kind of a set of must-have technologies you think that leaders and teams should be utilizing in order to get the best out of this kind of remote work era? I mean, you mentioned Teams and Zoom, which there seems like a given, those kind of really good quality teleconference applications.
Yeah, and have I mean, I've got a decent HD kind of camera. I have a Jabra speaker, so I can discuss things. Now I'm very fortunate in my situation, in that I've got an office in my house. Okay.
Yeah.
So like yourself there, with the headset, when the small kids and things like that, people in apartments that I work with a lot in big cities all over the world, because that's where they can tune in. So So to have a good headset, to have a good, invest in that, have the equipment, get a decent, chair for yourself, try and be comfortable, and all these kind of things, get a good screen and, because you're going to spend so much time, looking at it. Of course, it's important that you try and get your bit of exercise, get out for some fresh air and things like that. Goes without saying, but yeah, I mean, they're the main things. And I think companies should be supportive on that basis as well. So certainly with our company, people can take the good office chairs and screens and things like that and set themselves up at home. And I think give yourself the best shot, then try and find a bit of a space where you can work. But it's difficult, particularly if people have young kids, and when the schools were shut down, it was even more difficult.
Oh yeah, unreal. Yeah, absolutely. That's fine. I really like that you've mentioned there as well, and a couple of people have said it to me during these sessions, is building in time to get up off your desk and go for a walk or go for a run, or really you almost have to prioritize it. You have to make it a part of your kind of work routine. It all comes together as one.
You do. You very much do. Yeah, without a doubt. And I find myself that if I can try and do it in the morning, I have a better chance of doing it.
Yeah.
But I'll if I haven't done it, then I'll do it in the evening, and usually every day I will get out. For something to try and do some bit of exercise.
Yeah.
And I suppose really I'd like to do more as well in some respects, but I kind of can't. You have to kind of accept things as well.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got a lot that you need to do, and from a work point of view, and I think the other thing, just the last thing I would say that's really important, is to have that positivity.
Yes.
That kind of I suppose you might call it an attitude of gratitude, because you need to kind of get yourself into that frame of mind, really, you know what I mean, when you to keep things moving along, and I think really gratitude is important, because if you consider the context and everything and all that, and one of the things we do in JCI is we've got a fantastic diversity and inclusion ethos and culture within the company. And actually this week, or last week, we had so we work with Focus Ireland. They did a homelessness sleep out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Some of us kind of did the shine a light, and they kind of slept on the sofa on Friday night. Little things like that give you a bit of perspective,
Yeah.
And for me, kind of, I'm finding that more important and relevant, that whole area as well. So
yeah,
and that's another conversation.
but that's and like that's a really insightful as well, having perspective on where you are and being grateful for what we have. It's all too easy to forget when you're kind of wrapped up in and you're so busy and you're focused on yourself, to see what it's like for for other people who aren't as lucky as you and I and many other people who'll probably be watching this.
Yeah.
Eamonn, this has been an absolutely fantastic conversation. I know I've kept you way longer than I said I would. It's been really insightful. I'm sure anyone who's seen this will get so much out of it. So I just like to say thank you so much again for your time this evening. It's been superb.
Darragh, thank you as well. It's been very, very enjoyable to have this chat with you. Really appreciated it. Thank you very much, and it's great to be here with you and have the chat. Thanks a lot.
Excellent.